with us in this segment is Brad Kane, who's the editor of the Worcester Business Journal. Brad, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Brad, those in the business, government world, whatever, I mean, Worcester Business Journal is a well-known name and tradition, in the region. But for maybe our viewers who are not, as intimately familiar to the Worcester Business Journal, maybe you could describe, what the journal does, the reporters, the mission.
Sure. So we're a business-to-business magazine. So unlike, say, the Telegram and Gazette, which is going to be a daily newspaper covering news of all sorts for a general audience, WBJ we cover for a very specific niche audience, which is why, people that run in your crowd probably know us pretty well. So like the business leaders of Central Massachusetts, the CEOs, heads of government, people that make a lot of like hiring and spending decisions in their company. This tends to be who we write for. We tend to have a very analytical approach to our reporting, a lot of numbers driven, obviously.
Right.
Businesses love numbers.
Right.
Or at least we think they do.
Yeah.
And WBJournal.com, we just launched a new website last year. We think it's pretty interactive. We put up a paywall finally, so we are asking people to pay for the content after you get 12 free articles.
12 free articles, and you pay for it. But
and then the magazine comes out every other week. So.
WB Journal and the magazine every other week. And you mentioned B2B, B2C. So one of the things we talk about, with our businesses in some of the various kind of trainings and programs that we run at the Chamber, is having companies ask them, who are their customers? Is it other businesses? Is it direct to consumers? Mm-hmm. Or is it both? And you primarily are focused on the business community who has an interest in knowing what's happening in a range of fronts kind of within the various sectors of the economy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that we don't cover B2C businesses, but we cover it from a B2B standpoint. So whereas like, if there's a new restaurant opening, it's cool. And then, like a B2C, you're going to cover like what's the menu, what's it like when you go in. From a B2B, it's sort of like what's the impact on the region.
Right.
What's the restaurant industry like and how's it growing?
Right.
How's it changing, that kind of thing.
Got it. And you've been there for how many years now?
Almost 5.
5, yeah, I was going to say.
2015.
Yeah, 2015. And so you're a wily veteran now, with the WBDJ. But there is an annual event that the Chamber of Commerce does together with the Worcester Business Journal. It's actually, an event that people kind of look forward to. It's very substantive. It's not one of these hour and out. It's kind of detailed and kind of drilling down into the Central Mass economy and how things both nationally and internationally are impacting it. And the Worcester, the 2020 Economic Forecast Breakfast is coming up. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of some of the guests that are lined up and what the focus is this year.
Yeah, so February 12th, we've done it every year for, I believe this is our 9th year, with the Chamber. Obviously, it's a really, much like the Business Journal audience, it's very driven by, kind of the higher ups in the economy. So the line I give is like, if you want to eat bacon and then just go, hobnob with all the people that control the money in Central Massachusetts, that's who you're going to find. Like a longtime sponsor of the events, Bank of America, which is the largest bank in Central Massachusetts by local deposits.
But also a pretty big bank nationally and internationally too, right?
They got a little money outside of Central Massachusetts, from what I understand. So the event itself, we tend to be a pretty hard drill down into, what's the economy like. We'll have a panel of economic experts coming on, usually led by one economist, looking at, what's the Central Mass economy like, where are areas that we're growing, where are the areas that we need to shore up. Where looking forward, where are some things where we expect further growth, where are some things where there could expect to be maybe some trip ups. And then they'll put that in sort of the context of what it means for the global economy, how the trade war with the tariffs, how that might impact Central Mass businesses, even other, national things like the impeachment, is that going to have any sort of influence here? The potential conflict with Iran, how that could actually come down and affect Central Massachusetts. Right. So it's really a wide-ranging discussion on the local economy and how it fits in the global space. Right.
Well, one thing that, the reporting and analysis that you do on a regular basis reinforces, and again, the economic forecast event, does that as well, which will be Wednesday, February 12th at the Beechwood, is it reinforces that, the Central Mass economy is fairly diverse. Yes. And historically, we don't maybe have the highs when the economy's booming and roaring. We don't have the highs that other regions maybe have that are kind of riding the rocket of one sector. We have, but conversely, we don't have generally the lows because we've got kind of a diverse economy. There's healthcare, the biggest employer in the region, higher ed, very significant, financial services, and then manufacturing still kind of in the region, though we have some concerns in Worcester about the impact of the dual rate driving some of those manufacturers out of the city. But as a regional chamber, we'd rather have them stay in Central Mass than going out of the state or out of the country. But generally, this forecast kind of talks about the different sectors of the economy and sometimes can drill down on one that may be on the ascendancy and one that maybe have some challenges.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of understanding, like the manufacturing sector could be down as a whole, but you could be doing really well as an individual manufacturing company. And I should say, healthcare is the largest employer. Manufacturing is actually the largest sector in terms of economic output. I think it's like $6 billion of the local economy.
Yeah, and that's what we try to, we try to make sure policymakers, there'll be legislators at the state house, city councils, select boards, is that, you just mentioned, manufacturing has a disproportionate economic impact in terms of not only the employee wages, but the wealth that it generates, what it means for the supply chains in the region. You might be manufacturing X, but you might need elements of what you put into that product from other local manufacturers in the supply chain. So it's such a critical industry, and if you're not paying attention to that, in a special way, you're not kind of understanding how important it is.
Yeah, actually, one of the guests for the economic forecast this year, after we have the economists kind of go on and talk about big picture stuff and really get at the numbers thing, we have a couple of people coming on. One is the head of AI, I guess the head of the board of AIS,
right.
Arthur Maxwell, who founded the company as well. And,
and
AIS, they're up in Leominster.
Right.
They just expanded 2 years ago. They had a big tax
800,000 employees?
It's a lot, yeah.
And
every time I ask them, the number gets bigger. They make furniture.
And a major employer. They're drawing not only in North County, but people coming up from Worcester Central Mass. And again, it's made in the United States. Yeah. It is giving people economic ladders, and it's a great story about a company that kind of started reconditioning furniture, now making new.
Yeah, you're doing great.
And really out hustling and trying to get business.
Yeah, and obviously a big company like that has a lot of influence on the region. So I think Arthur can give some insight about how that company's influenced by, again, like tariffs and things like that, and he can talk about, what's happening in his company and how that influences the economy. Again, it's all kind of looking forward to the economic forecast. That's why we use that as the name. Yeah, they're doing great. And, I think you mentioned the manufacturing industry, really high wages. It's really, it's had a bad rep for a long time, probably undeservedly so now. But I mean, it's even one of those industries now where you don't need an advanced degree to go make.
No, and again, that's another piece of why we emphasize it's so important. Worcester is a gateway city. A place where new immigrants come, new Americans may not have formal education. Some cases may have a formal education but need to go through certifications. There may be language challenges, but we still have that mix of manufacturing here where someone can go to a manufacturer, make a good wage, climb an economic ladder or make enough wage where they can then maybe at night work on their skills or degree. And there aren't lots of sectors like that pay those wages, and that's why we fight so vigorously for those jobs for the region, and want to make sure that people understand the decisions and votes that they take, impact, because the margins, let's take AIS, right? You get tariffs and different things happening. If they have to buy their metals at a higher cost because of tariffs, that cuts their margin. They make pennies on the dollar. These margins are tight in manufacturing, and they're competing globally.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. We also have, from the real estate and development side, Ann Tripp.
Yeah, that'll be a real treat because I know you know Ann pretty well, but Ann Tripp, yeah, she's really awesome. We have a saying at business journals, if you understand commercial real estate, you understand the whole economy, because people that are like in commercial real estate know who's coming and going way before anyone else does.
And Ann Tripp, for those who don't know, she is the president of Opus Management in Worcester, but they're a division of Hanover Insurance. So the whole City Square project, a great partnership, kind of the rebirth of downtown. But really, it was Hanover putting its financial wherewithal and expertise in the board. Fred Eppinger at the time, now Jack Roach, saying, we're going to make an investment that we want to make money on, but we want it that'll help kind of make a huge difference in Worcester, and we've seen that. And Ann has really been the unsung hero and the brains behind the effort throughout.
Yeah, she's been a big power player for a while, but she operates behind the scenes. But she has a lot of insight, and as you mentioned, I think Hanover's decision. A lot of people sort of fed into what downtown has now become, but Hanover's decision to buy up a bunch of properties downtown and make them developable, make them ready for developers is important. I think Opus might be down to only a couple of properties now that they're looking to hand off.
And that's
which is sort of mission accomplished at their point.
Right. There's the remaining kind of Notre Dame Church site, which is available, and people are kicking the tires on, and then the garage right in the middle of the City Square project. There's the kind of park over the garage, but that was built so that could accommodate up to a 200,000 square foot building. So everybody's out pitching that, no one more than Opus, but at the Chamber, where every chance we have with developers and prospective investors, we talk about the opportunity that presents in the growing downtown, its connection to the Shrewsbury Street area, and further development there, not only with Mount Carmel, but potentially the DPW site, and then clearly the Canal District with the Bowler Park and Dennis Dowdall's $100 million plus project.
Yeah, obviously, I think you've seen a lot of developers make announcements, recently in and around Worcester. I think the Worcester Plaza was purchased within the last 6 months or so. And I know that's more of a renovation than a ground-up rebuild that you would see at the Notre Dame site. But I think a lot of the people are looking at maybe not waiting to see, but looking at kind of success that the developers have already sort of announced, and then that'll probably feed into these other properties that are.
And Worcester Plaza was original name Santander, the glass tower, pretty significant rehab of that, and that's going to be good for the construction industry and the city's tax base.
Yeah, I've heard some preliminary plans for that, the glass tower, and I think it'll be. It sounds like it's going to be really well done and interact well with the streetscape, which I think is good for that part of Main Street.